For 10 seasons, fans were obsessed with one question. Who is Raymond Reddington? Is he a criminal mastermind, a traitor, a father, or is he Katerina Rostova? The truth is, the Blacklist never wanted to give us a straight answer, and that's what made it brilliant. From day one, we were told Reddington was dangerous, brilliant, and mysterious. But as the show unfolded, that mystery deepened, not just around the people on his infamous blacklist, but around Reddington himself. The deeper you looked, the more it unraveled. And by the end, all we had was a suitcase full of bones, cryptic clues, and one powerful message. His identity wasn't the point. The story was. Let's break it down, simply. Raymond Reddington surrenders to the FBI, offers to help them catch the world's most dangerous criminals. But on one condition: he only works with Elizabeth Keene, a young profiler with no apparent connection to him. Right away, fans were hooked. Why Liz? Why now? Who is this man? We're told he's a former Navy intelligence officer turned international criminal. But that's just the surface. It doesn't take long before things start to crack. Then comes the game changer. The suitcase of bones. Introduced in Season 4 and haunting the story for years, it holds the remains of the real Raymond Reddington. A DNA test confirms it. The man we've followed all along, not the man the FBI, or even Liz, thought he was. This revelation explodes the central question. If he's not the real Raymond Reddington, then who is he? Liz becomes obsessed with finding out. She follows every lead, questions every story, digs through the past, and gets closer, but never close enough. Just when you think you have an answer, the show twists it again. By the time we reach the final season, one thing is clear. This wasn't just a spy thriller. It was a character-driven mystery. And for many fans, the final episode only added to the confusion. Some felt cheated. Others felt satisfied. But almost everyone had the same question in their head. Did we ever really find out who Reddington was? The truth? The show was giving us answers all along, just not in the way we expected. Let's talk about the clues. First, the burn scars. Reddington is covered in them, especially on his back. A constant reminder of a past trauma. In one flashback, we see a woman, believed to be Katerina Rostova, dragging a man out of a fire. That man was presumed to be Reddington. But what if it wasn't? What if the one who was burned was Katerina herself? Second, his emotional connection to Liz. Reddington's affection for her is undeniable, but it's not romantic. It's not simply protective. It's something deeper. He's devastated when she's hurt, relentless when she's in danger, and quietly obsessed with her future. There's a tenderness in how he looks at her, like someone carrying a secret too heavy to share. Third, his knowledge of Katerina Rostova's life. Reddington speaks about her with familiarity, pain, and regret. But what stands out is the way he protects her legacy. He burns documents, erases files, and keeps enemies away from her story. Almost like he's not just guarding Katerina's past, but living it. Fourth, his refusal to confirm anything. Every time Liz asks directly, he dodges. Every time someone corners him with facts, he shifts the conversation. He talks in riddles, metaphors, and emotional parables, as if telling the truth would destroy everything. And maybe it would. Finally, the biggest clue. He never once calls himself the real Raymond Reddington. That name is a mask, a symbol, a tool. The man behind it? That's the real mystery. These clues aren't accidents. They're intentional, and they're everywhere. The Blacklist wasn't careless with its mystery. It was layered, crafted, and filled with breadcrumbs that led not to one clear identity, but to an emotional truth. Reddington is not defined by his name. He's defined by his actions, and what he's willing to sacrifice. Let's get into the most compelling and most controversial theory in the Blacklist universe, the Reddington theory. This theory suggests that Raymond Reddington, the man we've followed for 10 seasons, is actually Katerina Rostova, Liz Keene's mother, in disguise. Yes, you heard that right. Here's how it goes. After the real Reddington died, Katarina had reconstructive surgery, assumed his identity, and lived the rest of her life protecting her daughter as someone the world feared. Not her former self, but a new mask that could fight back, disappear into shadows, and shield Liz from enemies far more dangerous than the truth. It sounds wild at first, but when you trace the breadcrumbs, it makes sense. Let's start with the why. Katarina was hunted by multiple intelligence agencies. She had burned bridges with Russia and the United States. She was considered one of the most dangerous spies in the world. Her daughter, Masha, later known as Liz, was in grave danger simply because of her parentage. The only way to keep Liz safe was to disappear, but not as herself. Instead, as the one man powerful enough to protect her, Raymond Reddington. This explains Red's emotional complexity. He's not just protective of Liz. He's deeply conflicted, often teetering between parenthood and secrecy. He gives Liz just enough to keep her close, but never the full truth, because revealing it might have destroyed her. Then there's the how. In the show, there are multiple allusions to plastic surgery. Red even knows surgeons skilled in identity reconstruction. One of the most referenced plot points is that Katarina underwent surgery to disappear. A new face, a new voice, a new life. Think about this. Reddington is fluent in Russian, intimately familiar with Katarina's past, and shows an almost maternal understanding of Liz's psychology. The tenderness, the fear, the hesitation to hurt her even when necessary. Then there's the episode where Red is almost captured by a Russian operative and says, "You think you know who I am? You have no idea what I gave up." That's not something a casual criminal says. That's someone who sacrificed everything. And here's the kicker. The show never explicitly denies this theory. Not once. It dances around it, hints at it, even teases us with scenes that almost reveal the truth. But it never outright says, no, Reddington is not Katarina. Why? Because the ambiguity is the point. Let's talk about that choice, because it frustrated a lot of fans. You watched 10 seasons. You saw the clues. You lived through the suitcase reveal, the betrayals, the final standoff. And then the show ends without telling you who he is? Why? Because his identity wasn't the story. The real story was Liz's emotional journey, not Red's secret. Every time she got close to the truth, it challenged her identity, her loyalty, her beliefs. The writers wanted you to feel what she felt. Confused, betrayed, desperate for answers. Just like her, you were meant to chase something you would never fully catch. Reddington wasn't meant to be a gotcha twist. He was a symbol of protection, of sacrifice, of love twisted by the need to survive. He became whoever he had to be to protect Liz. Maybe Katarina, maybe someone else, maybe both. But the point is, he chose that identity not for himself, but for her. It's also a brilliant storytelling tool. Leaving the mystery open keeps fans debating. It gives the show a legacy. It lets each viewer decide what they believe and why. This is what we call the difference between factual truth and emotional truth. Factual truth is, this is who Reddington is. Emotional truth is, this is who he became and why it mattered. And that emotional truth is what the Blacklist was really about. So how does this all tie back to Elizabeth Keene? Because from the very beginning, this was her story just as much as it was his. Maybe even more. Liz starts as a young FBI profiler, a blank slate. She's thrown into chaos the moment Reddington walks into her life. Everything she thought she knew about herself, her family, and her job is upended. And yet, through it all, she forms a bond with Red. A strange, complicated, beautiful, maddening bond. Sometimes it feels like family. Sometimes like friendship. Sometimes like fate. She tries to walk away, but never can. And deep down, she wants one thing more than justice or answers. She wants the truth. But the truth never comes. Not fully. Reddington keeps her close, but never reveals the full story. He fears what the truth would do to her. He fears what it would destroy. And maybe he fears losing the only person left who still sees him as more than a ghost. And then, just when Liz is ready to hear it, she dies. Tragic? Yes. Frustrating? To many fans, absolutely. But thematically, it completes the circle. Reddington's entire life, all the lies, all the manipulation, was built around protecting Liz. And in the end, he couldn't protect her. Just like Katerina couldn't protect her child all those years ago. It's poetic, painful, and in a strange way, redemptive. Reddington loses everything. Liz is gone. The truth dies with her, and the man behind the mask. He walks off into the unknown, maybe to die, maybe to disappear, maybe to finally become himself, whoever that may be. It's not about who he was, it's about what he did, and who he did it for. Let's address the elephant in the room. Many fans were furious with the finale. After 10 years of slow-burn storytelling, breadcrumbs, shocking reveals, emotional breakdowns, and cliffhangers, people wanted a concrete answer. They wanted a moment, just one, where Raymond Reddington stood still, looked at Liz, or even the audience, and said, "This is who I am." But that moment never came. And to some, that felt like betrayal. Like the writers had pulled off an elaborate con, only to walk away with the payoff still locked in a box. But here's the thing. Maybe they weren't cheating us. Maybe they were challenging us. There's a big difference between a lazy ending and an open-ended one. A lazy ending is when a show doesn't know how to tie up its plot and just stops. An open-ended one? That's when a story chooses not to give you all the answers, because the journey, the ambiguity, the feeling is the answer. Think about The Sopranos. Tony is in the diner. He looks up. The screen cuts to black. We don't know if he was shot. We don't know if he lived. People debated it for years, and still do. Why? Because the moment wasn't about what happened. It was about how you felt when it did. Tension, paranoia, fear. That was the point. Or, take Inception, the spinning top at the end. Is Cobb still dreaming? Did he make it back to reality? Nolan never tells us, because it's not about whether the top falls. It's about the fact that Cobb doesn't care anymore. He chooses his emotional reality over a logical one. These endings endure. People remember them. Not because they gave answers, but because they gave meaning. And the Blacklist fits that same category. It dared to say, "We've shown you who he is. Now you decide what that means." That's not a betrayal. That's bold storytelling. It gives the audience just enough to debate, wonder, and in some ways grieve. Because if Reddington had given a clean, wrapped-up identity at the end, the mystery would have died. The legacy would have shrunk. But because he didn't, the story lives on. In forums, in fan theories, in hearts. And yes, even in videos like this one. So let's go back to the question we started with. Who was Raymond Reddington? A naval officer? A master criminal? Katerina Rostova? An imposter? A ghost? Yes. And no. And maybe. Because the genius of the Blacklist wasn't in telling us who he was. It was in showing us why he was who he needed to be. For Liz. For the mission. For redemption. He was a father. Not because of blood, but because of sacrifice. He was a protector. Not because of a badge or gun, but because of his choices. He was a ghost. Not because he was dead, but because his past could never be fully known. Reddington was a man shaped by loss, love, and secrets so heavy they had to be worn like armor. He walked through fire, betrayed nations, killed enemies, lied to everyone, and still, in his own way, loved harder than most people could ever understand. That's why his identity doesn't matter. What matters is what he meant to Liz, what he gave up, what he protected, what he carried. And that's why we watched, not for the twist, but for the truth behind the mask. So, who was Raymond Reddington? He was whoever Liz needed him to be. And maybe that's the most honest answer of all. So now it's your turn. What do you believe? Was Reddington Katarina? Someone else entirely? Or something even deeper? Drop your theory in the comments. I read everyone. And if you love breaking down twists, mysteries, and endings like this, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This is TV and Film Explained, where confusing shows meet clear answers. I'll see you in the next video.